Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's UBC Talks webinar, Change Your Ways Towards Multimodal Urban Mobility in the Baltic Sea region. My name is Sin Lamoureux, and I work as a project officer at the Union of the Baltic Cities Sustainable Cities Commission. I will be moderating this webinar, and with me today is also my colleague Esther Kreutz, who will be taking care of the technical details. So, now some practical information. You can choose the audio and also choose if you would like to listen via phone through the navigation pane. And as you can see in the slide, you have some options for your audio. Also, this webinar will be recorded and uploaded to our website and our YouTube channel. If you have some questions or comments during this webinar, you are very welcome and even encouraged to leave them in the question box that you can find in the bottom of this navigation pane. We will then have a Q&A session in the end of this webinar where we will answer your questions. So, before we get started, I'd like to give you a short introduction to the Union of the Baltic Cities and our activities. We are the leading network of cities in the Baltic Sea region, working together to foster sustainable, smart, and safe cities. We in the Sustainable Cities Commission work with several different topics. If one would explain what we work with in broad strokes, it would be something like water management, local climate work, energy management and energy efficiency, urban planning and urban mobility, sustainable urban development. And in the lower corner, the right corner, you can see the address to our website, and there you can find even more info about what we do. So now that we have introduced ourselves, we would like to learn more about you. So we will now launch our first poll of the day. So what kind of organization do you represent? Are you from a local authority, an NGO, an academic institution, a regional or national authority, or something completely else? So, as you can see, most of you voted, 64% of you voted local authority and 27% academic institution. And we have no one from an NGO or a regional or national authority. So now we have a second poll. We would like to know whether you have participated in a UBC Talks webinar before. Okay, let's see what the results are. Oh, so more than half of you haven't participated before. Welcome to you all who are first timers in UBC Talks. I hope you will enjoy this webinar. And the rest have at least in one or two. Okay. Let's move on. So here you have the program in Central European Time. We will open this webinar with a presentation from Lisa Wiechmann and Steffen Nozon from the city of Rostock. The city of Rostock is the lead partner of the Cities Multimodal project, which you will hear more about in just a few seconds. Then we will move on to Kristina Kobyz and Olga Yakimenko from the city of Pskov. They will talk about the development of Russia's very first sustainable urban mobility plan. After that, Kaspar Alev from the city of Tartu will give us an insight in how they are measuring multimodality in Tartu. And today's last speaker will be Nika Kotoviča from the city of Riga. She will talk about how Riga started to increase the city's multimodality. And as I mentioned, we will then have a small Q&A session. And please remember to ask questions in the question box. Okay, but now on to our first presentation. Let me introduce you to the Cities Multimodal Project's lead partners, Lisa Wiechmann and Steffen Nozon from the Mobility Management Unit of the city of Rostock. So, Lisa and Steffen, fire away.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, fine. Dear friends of sustainable mobility, dear colleagues and partners, at first I would like to say thank you to the opportunity to share our knowledge, and let me say only a few words to the background of the project. So the cities in the Baltic Sea region and beyond are tackling the same challenges: climate change, air pollution, too much traffic noise, too much parking cars, and unhealthy living conditions in the cities. So we have one common goal: change cities from car orientation to sustainable urban mobility, and not less. So different projects founded by the European Union, like Baltic Sea Cycling Interface and ABC Multimodal, have brought us ahead, created networks and friendships and sustainable campaigns, but also released investments in our cities. So with the BSR project, Cities Multimodal, we did continue this work. We are all now going through challenging times. The pandemic, COVID-19, affects the daily lives of all of us. So we hope that you and your friends and your families are well, reorganizing lives between home office, homeschooling, social distances, and video conferences, long video conferences, sometimes boring video conferences, is definitely not easy. And we are looking forward to the end of the lockdown in all our countries. But let's understand this crisis also as a chance. So the earth is breathing deeply because car traffic volumes have decreased significantly. The nights are very quiet. You may be here singing the nightingale in the city center, like I did last night in Rostock. Many cities like Berlin use the opportunity to promote cycling with so-called pop-up bike lanes. Bristol went a step further and banished car traffic. Some weeks ago, we organized the cities model, so we saved a lot of CO2 emissions without flying from A to B. And due to travel restrictions, we discovered the beauty of our surrounding and the benefits of the nearness. So we believe that this pandemic is a chance to boost a more sustainable mobility in our cities. But now I would like to overhand to Lisa. Lisa Wiechmann is CMM project coordinator in Rostock, and she will give you an introduction to the Cities Multimodal project. So thank you for attention and enjoy the UBC talk. Thanks a lot. Oops.
So yes, thank you, Steffen, and morning to our listeners. I hope you can see my screen right now. I'm unsure. Before our city partners, Kristina, Kaspar, and Nika will give more insights into their activities at local, in their local cities, I would like to give you a more general overview about our project and what it is Cities Multimodal is all about. Cities Multimodal is funded through the Indirect Baltic Sea Region program, so it is a transnational project running for 3 years. We are focusing on the topic of urban mobility, or the priority of the program, urban mobility. In total, we are a quite large consortium of 16 partners, different partners from 8 different countries all over the Baltic Sea region. And we also have Russian partners, so Kristina from Pskov. You will get to know her later on. We as City of Rostock are leading this project consortium and this project, but we get help from our external consultant, which is Team Reg, who are supporting us in the overall project communication and also financial project management. The whole project is running for 3 years and started in the end of 2017 and is still ongoing or running at least until end of September this year. And yeah, we have a quite good budget of nearly 4 million euro, combining not only staff costs and external services, but also investment money. Yeah. I would like to say a few more words about our project consortium. We have the majority of our partners are city partners. We have 10 cities in our project who are implementing the activities that we are all developing together. So they are testing different solutions adapted to their local conditions. And you can see that they are really spread all over the Baltic Sea region, which is very nice. And we get support from our expert partners. There we have some NGOs who are dealing and promoting active mobility and cycling. We have also scientific expert partners like the Technical University Berlin or also the Institute of Baltic Studies. And of course, we have our network partner, the Union of Baltic Cities, the Sustainable Cities Commission, and some other local expert partners. And of course, we have a lot of associated partners who are supporting the project. Yeah, what is the aim of Cities Multimodal? In the project, we want to jointly develop and test low threshold solutions to foster the sustainable transport solutions that are existing. So walking, cycling, public transport, but also sharing mobility. And our aim is to make it easier to combine these different transport solutions. So we want to foster a multimodal travel behavior and multimodal traveling. So and by promoting and fostering multimodal and sustainable transport, we of course want to decrease the need for the individual cars and decrease car ownership and car use. And with our project, we would like to enable or initiate at least a change of behavior towards a more sustainable travel behavior. And as a consequence and the overall objective, of course, we would like to make the cities more livable by promoting climate-friendly transport solutions. So we are working, of course, for the citizens in our cities. Here you can see what are our project activities or how the project is structured. We have 4 work packages. 3 of them are thematic work packages, and we I would like to shortly explain how the project is structured. Of course, we have the project management work package and coordination, which is very general. But then we have the work package 2, which is focuses on promoting or developing multimodal city quarters. So this work package deals more on the infrastructure side. Let's say we want to improve the mobility offer and we want to improve the infrastructure in the cities for sustainable and multimodal transport. So this is the one side, and the second or the third work package is our work package on mobility management, which in contrast focuses more on the behavioral change side. So there we want to deal we are working with specific target groups to initiate a change in their behavior and a shift towards a more sustainable travel behavior. So these are, so we can say that we deal with both important approaches, so on the infrastructure side, but also on this more soft measures. And of course, then we have a 4th work package with this, which is very horizontal and is focuses on capacity building in our local city administrations and cities among civil servants, but it is also about involving citizens throughout the whole process of developing and implementing the measures that are planned in the project. And in work package 4, we are also dealing with the communication and dissemination, of course, of all our activities. This maybe seemed still quite technical, so I would like to give you, be more concrete and tell you what our city partners are doing. All our cities selected a pilot area, which is located in the dense inner city center of their cities. And this pilot area will be the area, or was the area in the project where the activities, or most of the activities, took place. So the cities tried to adapt or adapted the approach of sustainable mobility planning to this pilot area, so to a smaller scale than for the developing such a SUMP for the whole city. And out of this SUMP developed their different activities. So one, as I said, work package 2 was more on the infrastructure side. One focus in the project was to plan and implement multimodal mobility points. So points where you can interchange between different modes, transport modes, and where you have an offer of several sustainable transport modes. So our city partners have planned and implemented such mobility points in the cities as pilots for a future mobility point network. I think you will hear more about this from Riga. And another activity was that our cities are working together, as I said, more on this side of changing the behavior. And we selected different target groups in our project, which are schools, kindergartens, companies, and investors. And our cities worked together with these target groups and developed mobility management concepts and implemented activities, how behavioral change can be initiated among these target groups. And as I said, the cities involved the citizens during the different phases, already in the planning phase of the different measures, but also in the implementation and afterwards in the evaluation as well. And of course, all our city partners exchanged and cooperated a lot with their colleagues during the whole project. We organized peer reviews where we reviewed our cities and got to know their activities. and went also travel to other cities to learn about their mobility solutions, and also organized training events in order to increase the capacity in our cities. And as I said, we also have expert partners in the project, and these are, for example, our scientific partners who supported us in the preparation of of our activities, and especially in the preparation, the preparatory analysis to get an overview about where are our cities standing regarding sustainable and multimodal mobility. But they are also supporting us and giving us tools and methods how to evaluate successfully the project activities. Furthermore, our expert partners also collected advice for IT solutions for travel planning. So if cities are interested to introduce IT solutions like an app or a web tool for travel planning, our expert partners also gave an overview and gave advice what to think about when procuring such IT solutions. I hope you got at least a first insight on cities multimodal and what our project is all about. If you are interested in following us in our activities, you can subscribe to our newsletter, which the UBC is preparing, and you can, of course, on social media. We have a webpage, cities.multimodal.eu, but you can also follow us on our Twitter account, #cities.multimodal. So there you can find and learn a lot of more about the activities that are ongoing in our project. So I would like to thank you for listening, and I'm now looking forward that our cities will give more insight in what they are doing in the project to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Steffen and Lisa. I think you presented a nice overview of cities multimodal and what the whole project is about. So we move on. Next up is Olga Yakimenko from the Leontief Center and Kristina Kobyz from the city of Pskov. And the lady in the picture is Olga Yakimenko. Okay, Pskov, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone, dear colleagues, partners, and listeners. Thank you for inviting us to UBC Talks. It's a very good opportunity to tell you about our results and our work. My name is Kristina Kobyz. I'm from Pskov city. I'm the head of cross-border cooperation department at cross-border and tourism department, and I'm coordinating cities multimodal project from Pskov side. I would like to tell you some words about my very nice ancient city, because Pskov is one of the most ancient cities in Russian Federation. We are located in the very northwest of the country, so we are close to Estonia and Latvia and vice Russia. And we use this very nice geographical location for cooperating and taking part in many international projects, to use your expert meanings and your knowledge, and to develop also our cities in this multimodality vector. So we think that Pskov has all the favorable conditions to become a leader in sustainable growth with a good international reputation. Pskov is a really green city. With many parks and many squares, Pskov is also a touristic center of the northwest Russia and the old Pskov region. Our city is very famous for its long history. Pskov was founded 903, and our city has a large number of very old, interesting monuments and buildings, and a large number of 10 of them are listed in the UNESCO World Heritage List and the Cultural Heritage of the Russian Federation. For the project and for the developing of our first SUMP, we have chosen the territory, very central territory of the Pskov city. You can see on the slide, it's this territory is limited by the 5th ring of the defensive walls, and we have chosen this territory because it is very green, it is very populated territory, many administrative buildings and businesses and some schools are situated there. So it's a very good example for the first SUMP in our city. What about the whole process of the developing of the plan? We started with many working group discussions. We invited to our group discussions and to participate in our working groups, we invited local authorities, regional authorities. We invited many experts, and they took an active part in establishing the goals of the future sustainable development of the city of Pskov. We worked on the ongoing studies, we provided expert comments, and we engaged in the activities related to the implementation of the project, all the target groups. And so we started 3 years ago the preparation of the plan for sustainable development of the city of Pskov. So the first SUMP in Russian Federation has been prepared within the framework of the cities multimodal project of the Interact Baltic Sea Region Cross-Border Cooperation Program on behalf of the Pskov city administration. Actually, with the big consortium of planners, with the big help of our partners in this project, you saw many experienced cities we have in this project, and with the experts from the Green Mobility Network called Ecomobility, creating an accessible and safe environment. And now I want to give the floor to our partner, associative partner, to our expert, Olga Yakimenko, and she is going to tell you more about the document we have developed in the frame of this project. Olga, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Kristina. Hello to everybody, dear friends. I'm very sorry, but I will speak without camera because I have a not stable connection in my forest office. And my name is Olga, and I represent the Leontiev Center and the International Partnership Initiative Green Mobility. And we are very happy that we are now part of the history and very important cause at the federal, regional, and local levels. This is the first strategic document of the sustainable development in Russia. In addition, this document turned out to be very compact, about 60 pages, and beautiful. There are wonderful, cute pictures, but it is very important that the document that also pays a lot of attention to 17 goals of sustainable development, SDGs. During the wide participation of Pskov citizens in the focus groups on SUMP, we managed to build dialogue with more than 2,700 Pskov citizens. And the key question was, how should Pskov look like in 2030 and how to implement 17 SDGs at the local level? The result of this work was the setting of the main goal of our SUMP. By joining the efforts of the government, businesses and citizens, we are aiming for the well-being of the Pskov people, comfortable open public spaces, affordable multimodal and low carbon transport system, equal opportunities to fulfill one's creative potential for everyone based on the principles of responsible production and consumption and the promotion of a healthy lifestyle. To achieve the Pskov goal and to implement the Sustainable Development Agenda, we have three main priorities to set the direction for sustainable development of the city. So priority one is comfortable city environment, is aimed at creating an attractive, diverse and safe urban environment considering the needs of each person regardless of social status and physical abilities. Priority two, sustainable mobility and transport accessibility, is aimed at creating a sustainable multimodal transport system which will transform the streets of Pskov overloaded with cars into safe, attractive and comfortable living spaces. Priority three, sustainable platforms for interaction with urban community, is aimed at improving the quality of life and ensuring the well-being and welfare of citizens, sustainable growth, comfortable business conditions, innovative technologies, and integrating cultural and cultural life. So, because the priority change in transport usage is possible by creating additional stimulating conditions for one mode of transport and restrictive conditions for another. The main change required to create a more balanced modality is to increase the share of cycling and public transport by reducing road traffic. This will create opportunities for the development of the socially, environmentally and economically sustainable city. Together with the urban and expert community, we identified 5 sustainable modular platforms for interaction with the urban community and the integration of sustainable development goals. So I will very clearly skip these platforms. Platform number 1, quality education, decent work and social inclusion. Platform number 2, health, well-being and happiness of citizens. It's very important in our work. Platform number 3, a sustainable, safe and attractive urban environment. So, sorry. Innovation and future technology. Platform number 4. And constant interaction with city, how the city is developing and in what ways we can improve the quality of life. For continuous monitoring of indicators, Pskov will annually monitor and update the survey data. Here you can find a link below for our research. It is available in Russian and in English also. It's very interesting, really, instrument. So, and you are warmly welcome on Forum Green Day 2020, which will be held on 26-27 October in St. Petersburg. We will have a strong sustainable agenda and interesting transport sessions. Thankful Cities Multimodal project, during the first plenary session, City of Pskov will awarded by our Oscar in Sustainable Development, our Green Mobility Award. It is the International Award for Sustainable Development. You can see we have many of nominations, Cities for People, for example, and Pskov, of course, is the first city which developed this SUMP, awarded by our Green Mobility Award. And thank you very much for attention. I hope to see all of you in St. Petersburg in October. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kristina and Olga. It was truly fascinating to learn more about Pskov, the history of the city, and how you are now moving towards a more sustainable future. Now we will move on to the city of Tartu. Kaspar Alev from the city of Tartu will now talk about measuring multimodality. So, Kaspar, take it away.
So hi everybody, I hope I'm clear and it's all good.
Yes.
So I agreed to talk about how we measure multimodality in Tartu. Actually, it's still in process. So I can give you an overview of what we're doing, and I have a short case study about what's happening right now. And I think here we go. So quick overview of Tartu City Government's ICT systems. First of all, we have our financial system. We have our document management system. We've been basically paper-free since like 2010. We have our ArcGIS system, and then we have our Internet of Things platform that we use to collect data on mobility in the city. We have this platform thanks to our Lighthouse project from Horizon 2020, Smart and City project, and our friends and partners in Telia company. But the IoT system isn't used just for traffic counting. We also want to incorporate different aspects of mobility and energy and environment into our IoT system. So right now we have already the national electricity feed, sharing data on our building electricity consumption. Also, the Tartu's heat provider is providing us with data on how much we consume on hourly basis in our buildings. We have the traffic counters around the city. We get data from our buses, including locations, accuracy on timetable, and number of validations in the buses, stuff like that. Tartu has a very nice and basically brand new bike share system, which provides us with different aspects of bike share. We also have connected a few building management systems to provide us with a more specific energy consumption data than the national provider can give us. Then we have environmental sensors on noise and air quality, and also street lighting. And it's all going to be visualized in our ArcGIS system. So the goal for us is to have a comprehensive overview of the traffic in Tartu, like public transportation, private cars, cycling, and heavy traffic in the city. And we would also like to, at some point, have an overview of how much the city is at a specific day or a moment emitting greenhouse gases. But looking to our case study, it's what's been happening in Tartu with the virus and state of emergency. Estonia's state of emergency was instated on the 12th of March. It's been now ended. There are still some restrictions, but our state of emergency was a bit more relaxed than it was in other countries around Europe. But quickly about the trends before we get to right now, you can see that the car traffic in Tartu has been virtually unchecked since the start of cars, and the energy consumption and CO2 emissions have risen by 35 and 36% since 2010 in private car traffic. And you can see the graph below showing the blue line showing the increase of traffic within the city, and the increase of traffic over the city border is represented by the red line. So you can see the city sprawl is driving our cars basically, and this increase of cars has to stop, and the trend has to be turned around. and decreased. So this is a map of Tartu showing you where we right now have high quality of data on car traffic, and we are monitoring very well the entrances and exits to the city to get an overview of the thing that is driving our private car traffic the most. And here is basically some trends. This year, before the instatement of state of emergency, the traffic on average per day was around 92,000 cars per day going over the city border. During the first 4 weeks of the state of emergency, the traffic dropped by, let me see, it dropped by 34% per day on average. And when things got a bit better, the numbers were showing some positive signs of the virus receding, and people got more positive, and some restrictions were eased. Then during the last 3 weeks of the state of emergency, the car use increased, but it was still below the beginning of the year level by 15%. This is basically the same numbers showing you the red line showing you total of work days per week, and the gray line is total of weekends, and orange showing you the total of a week. So you can see the trend dropping week by week, and then rebounding in the end of April and the first week of May. But when we look at averages of per day, work days and days of weekend, you can see that they're roughly the same. So people use their cars as much on the weekends as they do during the week. The goal of the drive is different, but the number of rides is still roughly the same. But what has driven the decrease? It's closing of school and moving into our home offices. So during the period of the state of emergency, the rush hours, the morning rush hours and the evening rush hours, they dropped significantly. You can see the morning rush hour, the red dotted line showing the beginning of the year, and the other line showing different periods of the state of emergency, and there has been basically no rebound from the beginning of the year. But the evening rush hour, it dropped by 26% compared to the beginning of the year, and the first week of May, basically the evening rush hour had already, well, regained its levels of the beginning of the year. But what is a very alarming trend with the decrease of traffic is that speeds have increased significantly. This is a graph showing the blue bar showing how much the average speed in a specific point of measurement differentiates from the allowed speed at that very point, and the red bars basically show the trend of what it was before and what it was after instatement of the state of emergency. So almost all of the measurement points, the speeds have increased, and you can see it in the city traffic everywhere. The cars are going faster. They don't care so much for other users of the streets, whether it's other cars, cyclists, pedestrians, and the available space has even kind of yeah, a way for faster driving. So what's the use of all these measurements? Well, our goal for 2030 is to reduce cross-border traffic by 35% compared to 2020. But the numbers are, it's best to actually experience what the drop of 35% means. So we have the data that shows, yes, this is the goal that where we want to be in 10 years. And you can actually see how much space there is on the streets and experience the change in a very quick way. So this gives a very clear message to our city planners that if we are to reach our goals in 10 years, then there's no need for any other private car infrastructure. Roads is just needs more space for cycling and public transportation. And it is a clear understanding for the decision makers as well, what it means to have a decrease of traffic by 35%. So a plan for 2030 is, first of all, mobility points coming from the very goals of the project Cities Multimodal. Have mobility points on entrances of the city for cross-border commuters to leave their cars there and change into whether to use their own bikes, use our bike share system, or use our public transportation, the buses and whatever else there might be in year 2030. We want to reduce space on the roads, and we want to reduce the speed limit on our main roads in the city to smoothen the traffic, increase the capacity of the remaining space for cars, and reduce noise, pollution, and make it overall safer for everybody. And this is by 2024. And the cycling infrastructure within the city should also be finished by that time. And our goals is to keep the current traffic level at 39,000 cars per day. And then we hope to see a trend of decrease by 35% by the year of 2030. You see the goals down on the slide. But also a great result from the Cities Multimodal project is the Living Streets campaign that we did last year. This is a photo of our very happy mayor on one of the Cities Multimodal events. And it meant basically closing the street for a week and making it into a pedestrian and cyclist-friendly environment. And our mayor was so happy that he wanted to see this year on a much larger scale and on a very impactful scale. So we are in July closing one of very crucial streets called the Freedom Boulevard. We're closing it and turning into a kind of a open library, culture center, event venue, and we're calling it Car Freedom Boulevard. And hopefully, after the campaign ends, the street won't be the same anymore. We can reduce the space that's meant for cars and give it to other modes of transportation. So you know how we measure, you know our goals and what we're doing. So I hope you wish us luck, and I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Kaspar. It was a very topical presentation, and I definitely think we will hear more about IoT, 5G, and big data when measuring multimodality. Good luck with your Car Freedom Boulevard. Before we move on to our last presentation, we will launch the third poll of the day. So, when you usually go to work, how do you go there? Choose your option from the poll. All right. So now we can see the results. Most of you use public transport, which is a good thing. The other options by car, walking, and cycling all got the same amount of responses. Thank you for answering. All right, so on to the last presentation of today. We will now move on to Riga and Nika Kotoviča. Nika, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Sini. I do hope that everyone sees now my screen. Yes. Hello once again, and thank you for voting to the previous question. I have a feeling that all attendees of the meeting today are from the city of Riga, because actually your votes mimic very much the modal split in the city of Riga, where the absolute majority of the trips in our city are made by public transport. Yeah, so that remark was to warm you up. And my presentation today will be reflecting a story, so how the city of Riga is moving towards the sustainable mobility and enhanced multimodality, because that's definitely a part of a bigger plan in our city. So Riga city, besides being a beautiful and magnificent historical heritage, is actually also a significant transport hub of the Northern Europe. So it's not surprisingly that smart and environmentally friendly transport and sustainable urban mobility are among our top strategic development priorities. And on a slide, you see a few facts about the baseline situation in Riga. And what you can see from the slide, that we have a high share of public transport in our modal split. Our public transport is modern, sustainable, and we are also quite green when speaking about the energy production and use of renewable energy sources in our overall energy balance. Also, the low car ownership rate has been registered in Riga, which means that public transport is definitely among our priorities. So here we see our picture of modal split in Riga. So that was my reflection on being very similar to the audience today, that a majority of trips in our city are made by public transport. Yeah, and of course we wish that cycling could be a bit higher, but let's remember that we are northern city with rather harsh winters, and cycling sometimes in deep snow is a bit difficult. So concerning the decarbonization in our city, as you see, over the recent years, it becomes more and more challenging to reduce the CO emissions. So therefore, our city needs to have a really ambitious plans and ambitious actions in reducing CO2 emissions. And this is one of the strategic goals of Cities Multimodal project, where we are one of the partners. But this is definitely one of the most ambitious goals in planning of the city of Riga. So I always start my presentations explaining how important is a good planning, because it all starts from from planning. So sustainable development strategy of the city of Riga extensively supports public transport and sustainable transportation in the city. Also, a sustainable energy action plan of the city of Riga supports strongly emission-free mobility. It supports development of bicycle networks in the city, as well as development of emission-free transport vehicles and emission-free so charging stations network and etc. So here you see a sample from the city of Riga that decarbonization of municipal transport is one of our strategic goals, and year by year electric or hydrogen driven vehicles become a part of our public transportation system. So besides those plans, the city of Riga has also developed a Riga city cycling development concept, where three main priorities are development of cycling infrastructure, cycling planning and management, as well as promotion of cycling in the city and education of our citizens that cycling is more sustainable than other modes of transportation. So basically, all the planning of the city of Riga is a platform for our city how to become a climate smarter city by all kinds of different means. And now let's speak about the cities multimodal project. So how we are implementing the project in our city and what benefits it brings to us. One of the key challenges identified in the cities multimodal project is high traffic levels in the city center, and as well as the city of Rostock and other cities in our project, we did an in-depth preliminary analysis, and we have found out that actually in our city, the willingness of our inhabitants to change to sustainable mobility modes is rather low. So we definitely need to work a lot towards improvement of situation. So in cities multimodal project, our pilot site is located close to the center of the city. And we have chosen this pilot site not only because the pilot site is an intensive public transport hub and a transfer point for different modes of transportation. It's densely inhabited area with a high number of inhabitants and much more daily users of the site. So it's a densely populated and densely used area near to the historical center of the city of Riga. In the cities multimodal, from the day one, we have applied very participative approach, meaning that all solutions for the pilot site were developed in close collaboration with local stakeholders, with urban planning experts, both from the city and from private planning companies, and definitely in close collaboration with local residents of our pilot site. So thus, our goal was to bring together all those diverse experiences and minds of urban planners, residents, businesses operating in our pilot area, with an aim to co-create, to jointly develop specific and tangible ideas for the improvement of mobility situation in our pilot site. As part of the city's multimodal project, we have developed a concept for mobility points for the entire city, as well as we have developed a prototype for the first mobility point, what is now being piloted in the city of Riga. Another group of activities in the project was motivating our citizens to combine walking, cycling, and public transportation. So combining all the other mobility modes, which are more sustainable compared to individual private car. So here you can see all the stakeholders who collaborated with us in development of the first mobility point in Riga. So here you see IT companies, different mobility providers, starting from shared bikes and shared cars and shared taxis and etc. The IT companies, as I mentioned, and of course municipal stakeholders, different departments of the city. So it resulted in design of the first mobility point in the city of Riga, and this mobility point will be launched on 17th of June this year. So all the work has been implemented, and construction works are ongoing, and in 2 weeks our mobility point will be open for public. Of course, it's a bit pity that this is happening now during the COVID-19, when we have strict restrictions in the city, but hopefully the situation will soon improve, and evaluation of the mobility point will show how this activity improves multimodality in our city, as we do believe that this will definitely improve. Another aspect of city's multimodal project, as I said, so besides fostering multimodality in our city, we are working on mobility management activities in our pilot site. So here is one sample, again with the pictures from an innovative hackathon, which we have organized early this year in our pilot site. So we applied hands-on urban planning approach, allowing our participants to have an opportunity to dive in the pilot site and to examine it from different perspectives of land use in our site. So our participants take the pilot site with a baby go-kart, or how it is for a driver when you have to park your car in those narrow parking lots, or how is our pilot site from the perspective of international visitor who doesn't know the local language. So how easy or how difficult it is for him to orientate in the pilot site. So the main goal of this hackathon was to co-design solutions for balancing those different interests and relations among all our stakeholders in the pilot site, and to come up with solutions how we could improve the mobility management in our pilot site. So through the workshops, different solutions were designed, and those solutions have been extremely important for our city to develop so to develop solutions, and so that was actually a great inspiration for our further work. But cities multimodal project in our city is not implemented solely, so it's a part of our comprehensive approach to mobility management. So besides it, we have several other ongoing projects, and just a few samples of those projects in the end of my presentation. Cities around the Europe are commonly facing a challenge how to preserve the mobility of elderly or vulnerable citizens in our cities. So Riga's answer to that challenge is, why not in a climate-friendly way? So we have equipped one of our municipal hospitals with e-scooters or slow motion vehicles, what you see in the picture, with aim to improve mobility around the hospital, which is another nice historical building, and consists of 23 separate buildings in a large territory which looks like a park. And this experiment was extremely successful, as the slow motion vehicles had been used by hospital employees for transportation of patients and for transportation of different goods, medications, and etc. And such a scooter is performing per day from 10 to 30 kilometers, being a real good assistant for hospital operations. And well, in Riga, we didn't stop here. So our next pilot was to try a slow motion vehicle in a city cemetery. And also this project was extremely successful. We never expected such results, that actually from the day one, this vehicle helping people to move around the cemetery, helping them to bring different stuff and do the activities that people are used to do there. So the scooter travels nearly 60 kilometers a day with just one charge overnight. So as an e-vehicle, this is a sustainable way how you can move around even such places which, as we all know, are generally attended by our older population and people with limited possibilities to move. Another trend in our city, when developing new infrastructure, we are considering applications of green infrastructures and nature-based solutions in our urban infrastructure. In this way, providing a higher quality, cleaner and safer urban environment, as well as accelerating further decarbonization in our city and improving the overall climate resilience. So this is our way to sustainable urban mobility and multimodality in our city, and a comprehensive approach is our answer to this challenge. And the city of Riga believes that each citizen of our city has to be sustainable in his daily choices. Otherwise, we will never reach our sustainability goals, and we will never be able to be a sustainable and climate smart city. So thank you very much, and your questions are welcome.
Thank you very much, Nika, for your presentation. You are doing so many interesting mobility things in Riga. And the best of luck with the opening of the mobility point in a few weeks. So, as you can see, we have now reached the questions and answers session of this webinar. So keep those questions coming. We do have time to answer them. But Esther, if you would like to read the first question.
Yes, there are a few questions were coming up, and I think I'll start right away with those that came to Nika or for Riga about the Riga presentation, as it's freshest in our mind. There was actually two questions regarding your activities with the elderly people and on the cemeteries. So the question is like, how was the acceptance of these e-vehicles by elderly people, and then also, do they drive themselves? Nika.
Thank you very much for those questions. Actually, the acceptance from the day one was very positive, contrary to what we expected. Latvians always have had a very rich cemetery culture. So the elderly generation is really taking care of the graves of family. And therefore, our e-vehicle, what you have seen in the presentation, it's first of all, as electrical vehicle, it's very silent, but in order to avoid any dangerous situations, we have equipped it with a flashlight. So it's flashing when it's driving. So that's the way how the vehicle pays attention of the visitors of the cemetery. And actually, so what we have witnessed at the cemetery, that visitors been fueling for a possibility to use that vehicle to access their graveyards, which are scattered in the cemetery territory. And I forgot to mention in the presentation that the territory is really large. It's like 14 hectares. And also the pavements are not straight. So it's very slopey. And in some places we have asphalt, and in other places we have just sand and stones and uneven surfaces where it's very difficult to move. Answering about who is steering the vehicle, normally there's a staff, someone who can steer the vehicle, but if the customer wishes, it's possible to steer it individually. And then a very important fact is that this vehicle has a limited speed. So normally such vehicles can go like up to 30 kilometers per hour. Our vehicle has a speed limit of 15 kilometers. You simply can't get more out of it because that's the setting of the vehicle. And 15 kilometers per hour is not considered as a dangerous speed for navigating around this difficult environment of the cemetery. Okay, thanks.
Okay.
And the next question.
Interesting. Yeah. Then there was another question that was more related to your mobility point, and I think it was related to this slide that you had where you had all the logos of the different stakeholders. So the question is like, how concretely do you organize the cooperation between so many actors for the mobility point, and was it difficult?
Basically, well, it wasn't difficult. It was a lot of work, and that's a continuous process of many stakeholders meetings and many stakeholders activities. I just highlighted in my presentation a few of them, like creative workshops for the stakeholders, or this mobility hackathon, which was aimed at improvement of the mobility management in our pilot site. But basically, my tip to all the other cities who want to work with stakeholders is, please stay close, work in a close collaboration, and have regular proactive interactive meetings. So regular discussions, regular development of joint ideas, regular co-creation, and etc. So then you will definitely yield with a good results, as we did in Riga, because actually our mobility point has a lot of technical features which were influenced by our local stakeholders. So it will be a platform where local IT developers can design and test new technologies, and lots of issues are integrated in the solution. After the launching of the mobility point, we will be very happy to explain it in our next UBC webinars.
Yes, that would be great. I mean, it's
Thank you.
really, thank you, Nika. It's very, very complex, but I think you said you had really good points with like keeping this continuous dialogue. That's really the important thing. Thanks a lot. I think we'll go to the next question. There was one question to Pskov and related to your SUMP, and the question is like, what kind of relation or what kind of cooperation do you have with the European SUMP community, and have you used or have you been looking at other city examples of how they have developed SUMPs?
Okay, thank you very much for the question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, actually, this cities multimodal project was the first step to cooperate and coordinate and get the knowledge of other European cities in the question of sustainable urban mobility plan. So actually, we used all our seminars and study trips and all our webinars, and we attended also in Turku, you know, and the SUMP seminar. We had many discussions with Russian and European experts about the SUMP. We took the knowledge of our neighbors in Tartu. We have 70 twin cities, and the most of them are situated in the Europe near us. So we really lucky to have this geographical location, which allow us to participate in many international projects. So we go on. After developing of the SUMP, we will integrate this document in our strategic document, strategy for developing of Pskov city and also Pskov region, because nowadays they are developing this strategical document. So we are very proud and we insist on taking our SUMP and involving our SUMP in the strategic documents. So yes, we used all the expertises and all the knowledge of our twin cities and all of our consortium partners in the cities multimodal project. They are very experienced and skilled in this area, so we could see the mistakes and the efforts and the results and good things of our project, of our partners. So it's a very rich knowledge and expertise.
Okay, thanks, Kristina. And then there is one question to all the panelists, and well, the question is, let's say it's also a little bit the essence of our project, so I'm not sure if you can really answer it, but perhaps some of you have a comment. So the question is like, so how could we attract private car drivers to switch to other modes of transportation? It's a very broad question, of course, and we address that with many activities, but does somebody have a comment, like what would be like the main thing that has to be changed, ideally? Or is it too big, the question? I mean, it's the question that we try to answer with the project. Perhaps I just explain a little bit to also the one who asked the question. I mean, in cities multimodal, the aim is to find these different ways, and I think cities do it like Nika explained in Riga. They are building mobility points. That's a way how they want to attract the switch between private car to other modes of transports. We work with different mobility management activities to work more on the behavioral change level, let's say. So there are many activities in the project that address exactly this. I think none of us has the solution to solve that, otherwise we wouldn't do the project. And we all know from our own experience also that the change of personal behavior and the change of habits is something that takes a long time, and it's a very challenging process for everybody. And but that's something that we address, and through these activities like mobility points, to provide this infrastructure, to provide possibilities, to provide different choices. I think it's these are good steps towards that.
Yeah, and
yes,
and I can add, what about Pskov? We are in the very beginning of this process, and we didn't have any. We don't have still any parking where they have to pay for this paid parking. So we are thinking about now, and we are developing the system of paid parking lots, parking spaces in the city area. I think it will stop everyone to come in the city center and to park their car. And we, during the developing of our SUMP, we measure it. If the cars go through the city centers, or they go to the city center and work there, or study there, but the main cars go through the city center. So we want to stop it also by making another better road for them. So now we are building the the road around the city. So we think that it can stop this transfer traffic, and also we are building this parking for money parking.
Yeah, thank you, Kristina. Yes, of course, parking management is a very powerful tool for that. Yeah, I think we will hear even more about how the cities multimodal city partners really address this question then in towards the end of the project, with all kind of different outcomes that we will produce. But for these were the questions for today. Thank you, and I'll hand back to Sini.
Yes, so as there are still many more topics that can be discussed about multimodality and what needs to be done, during this autumn, we will organize a webinar series where we will speak more about these specific issues that we are tackling in the project. So as you can see, we will have one webinar about mobility points, another about mobility management for selected target groups, and a third one about involving citizens and campaigns. So the dates will be published as soon as possible, And make sure to follow us on our social media, subscribe to our newsletter, and check out both the UBC website and the Cities Multimodal website for staying in the loop. And on that note, here you can see, I think for the second time, the address to the Cities Multimodal website. So check it out and subscribe to or register to the webinar series when we publish the registration. So our next UBC talks will be in 2 weeks, and it will be about intelligent transport solution piloting, and that will be the last UBC talks before our summer break. So be sure to register to that one too. On behalf of UBC Sustainable Cities Commission and our presenters, thank you very, very much for joining us today, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you and bye-bye.